Today on WebDM, we're going to discuss a class no one knows what they were doing. Wait, damn it. So what's the line again?
No one knows who they were.
Who they were.
Or
a mysterious
what
class.
they were doing.
Hello. Today on WebDM, we're going to discuss a class that no one knows who they are or what they were doing. We're going to discuss the Druids.
The Druids.
We need to try to refrain, or do we,
From,
making too many Spinal Tap jokes?
I mean,
during the
not too many.
recording?
A tasteful number of Spinal Tap jokes. which is
During the show.
Yeah, during this show.
I love Druids.
Yes.
I love everything about the idea, the concept, the execution.
Yeah.
What,
I sense a but. Is there a but?
Well,
Or however?
however,
Uh-huh.
in 5th edition,
Yeah.
while almost everything's been nerfed,
Hmm.
I think probably the thing that took the biggest hit.
Oh, I mean, in terms of just like the number of things you can wild shape into,
Yeah.
not having an animal companion,
Yeah.
just the general nerfing that went on with spellcasting, the number of spells you can have active at any given time. In that sense, yes, the druid took a hit. The same way that the cleric took a hit,
Right.
and
Wizard.
the wizard took a hit. So yeah, the druid is no longer the you guys can go home, I got this covered class
Yeah.
that it was in 3rd edition.
Because it's pretty ridiculous.
It was pretty ridiculous, and I know that we've talked about it in previous episodes, sort of our first impressions of 5th edition. But yeah, there were times in 3rd edition when I was playing a couple of the druids that I played that it felt like, okay, I've literally overshadowed 3 other people at the table in this adventure today, and you're just you're not going to run into any of that with 5th edition. That said, I mean, we've seen some druids at our table, but it seems like one of those classes that no one's found like their druid yet and played it to the extent that they've played, say, paladins and clerics and wizards.
I'll give you the choice. How you want to start, land or moon? What's your favorite? And we'll start there.
Yeah, I wish that I liked land more than I do.
Right.
Some of my favorite druid characters that I've played from prior editions, I'm thinking Orion Brooks in 2nd edition, that we played that game. We were all in Chult. In jungles, and most of the party ended up eaten by dinosaurs and lizard men, except for my druid, who was just like, I'll just turn into a parrot.
Was that the one where it was
and fly away.
Machiavelli?
Yeah, the Thayan,
yeah.
Thay life.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Where it was Machiavelli
With
and
the
Thay life.
with the wand tattoos.
Yeah, no, it was a crossbow instead of the AK-47. But yeah, it was a dual specialist, Evoker Rapture.
The joys of high school D&D.
Yeah.
Yes.
He should have given me a pre-made character named Machiavelli. I'm sorry.
He shouldn't have. But yes, so that was the same campaign. I'm thinking that there's also a couple that I remember from 3rd edition that were just powerful characters. They could do everything and do it very well. So I wish that land had something more going for it. At the same time, land is like, do you want to be a nature wizard?
Yeah.
Then be a land druid. You're getting that extra cantrip. You're getting some nice sort of special abilities on the side, land stride, resistance to or immunity to poison and disease.
Get some slots back.
Get some slots back. There are certainly some of the circles that stand out more than others. I'm thinking of like Coast, Underdark, Grassland.
Grasslands, yes.
Mostly because they're giving you spells that aren't already on the druids list.
Yeah. I mean, it gives you a nice selection, and they're spells that you will actually use.
You're actually going to use, yeah. And at the same time, Forest has a nice sort of classic feel to it. And if you're already going to be preparing things like Commune with Nature, Entangle, Call Lightning, then why not always have them prepared? And then you can use your actual prepared spell slots for the more interesting things that you might want to cast. You've got those staples just already in your back pocket, already considered. So I think Forest is still, if I was going to play a druid, I would be very tempted to play a Forest druid, just because of the classic nature of it.
Yeah.
But that said, I find that when I think about what I want to do with the druid in 5th edition, and I go, is it land or is it moon? I go, everything I want to do with land, I can do with moon and also get the enhanced wild shaping on top of it. And so I just don't see a lot of reasons personally to play a Circle of the Land Druid. That said, I am really excited to hear other people's experiences about it. If we have any viewers who've have a lot of experience with Circle of the Land Druids, please let us know what they're like. How do they differ from Moon Druids in your experience? Most of the Druids I've played in 5th edition, or that I've seen played, have been Moon Druids, and so I feel like more comfortable with that subclass.
Yeah, we did it was like a 1 or 2 shot. Like it was like 1 or 2 adventures that we played, where I played a Moon Druid. I think it was like 7th or 8th level.
7th or 8th level,
somewhere
yeah.
around there.
Uh-huh.
Well, I know I could at least polymorph into T-Rex.
Yeah, using polymorph spell T-Rex, so you're at least an 8th level character in order to do that. And Moon Druid is just they've got a lot going for them, and in the early tiers they are, no pun intended, beasts.
Yeah.
The kind of things that you can polymorph into, or you can
one
wild
could
shape
say
into.
that they significantly shift the flow of battle.
Right.
Sorry. I threw up in my mouth.
That's all right.
That was a good one. But I mean, like my character, like I based him off Mowgli from Jungle Book, and so he would change into all the animals that raised him.
Right.
That was his whole
Panthers,
kind of
bears,
deal.
that
But
kind of thing.
I decided to go human and just. Since it was 8th level, I took 3 resiliences, so I was proficient in 5
of the 6 stats.
5 of the 6 saves.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, I want him to be as survivable as possible,
Right.
and I'll let his druidic magic cover the rest, but I want to cover all my saves.
Well, and that shows you that sort of highlights one of the strengths of the Moon Druid, because you don't need physical stats. Your animal shapes are going to provide those physical stats for you. You just need wisdom. You are the epitome of a single stat class.
It is true.
In a way that a lot of other classes can't really get around, because most classes are like whatever their main stat is plus con.
Right.
Or whatever their main stat is plus like dex or con. And whereas Moon Druid is just like, I need wisdom. If I need con, I'll turn into a big beefy animal. If I need dexterity, I'll turn into a quick and agile animal.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
And that's kind of the great thing about them.
Yeah.
Or I don't know if it's unfair to other classes, but hey, that's what they do, right?
Yeah, and so I find that in early levels they're going to be that's where where they're going to shine, and even maybe potentially in the later game where they have unlimited wild shapes.
Right.
And I'm beginning to imagine a scenario where a 20th level Moon Druid is just one of those things where it's like, just good luck trying to kill this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, classes are already very robust and survivable in 5th edition if you're just playing with like the basic rules and not beefing up the monsters or creating like 10 times deadly encounters for your party to go through. If you're just using like the base rules, characters are already pretty robust and it's hard to keep them down. When you add on the fact that this guy gets the healing that comes from wild shaping, can do it an unlimited number of times, is able to turn into beasts of up to CR6, elementals, can cast verbal and somatic spells while in wild shape, thanks to just the druid features. Like a high level Moon Druid is just all over the place.
Yeah.
And and on top of that, they then have all full druidic spellcasting, which means they're probably running around with all of the type of summoned and bound creatures that druids can run around with. And so I'm finding that what I want right now from Wizards of the Coast is more druidic paths, so that we can get some more variety in what druids look like, and hopefully give us some options for the class.
Yeah, and while just talking about expanding their reach, the new monster guide, Boles guide.
Boles guide, yeah.
It does expand a little bit on beasts that they can turn into, fae that they can summon.
Yeah, so there are some DMs who dinosaurs are off limits for wild shapes and polymorphs and stuff.
That's bullshit.
And it's one of those things where it's like, depending on the campaign setting and depending on the type of druid, I can see why you would say that. If it's a world like Forgotten Realms, there are dinosaurs that exist in Forgotten Realms. And so is your druid familiar with those? I do like the stipulation on wild shape, and I think it keeps it in check that your character has to have seen or experienced this animal of some kind. I don't think it's a good idea to return to the days of 3rd edition of, just give me that monster manual, I'm going to turn into whatever I want out of it. I think that there's real justification, and DMs need to consider carefully how that mechanic works, how much you let a druid player come in with prior knowledge of animals. Do you say, okay, I grew up on the plains, I'm a grasslands druid or a moon druid who grew up on the plains? Do I know anything about dinosaurs in the hot jungles of Chult or wherever they've forgotten land before time, as it were?
Yeah.
However, once you see a dinosaur, it's like, that's a beast. I'm going to turn into that thing.
Right.
So I think that where DMs fall on the letting their druids turn into dinosaur scale, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I think it opens up the floor for some really killer combos of the kind of things you can get up to, and particularly with Boles' Guide having some sort of lower CR dinosaurs with the Deinonychus or the Dimetrodon and letting them become those. That can be kind of interesting. But you might want to have a story justification for it.
It might be part of a whole series of adventures because you're a druid and you're just trying to expand, all the natural animals that you have seen or experienced.
So, I mean, it also brings up an interesting point that you could have a druid character, particularly a moon druid character, or not, or even just a land druid character, where their whole deal is like, yeah, I'm going to see everything I can. I'm going to experience every type of animal life. And so you have sort of like a naturalist kind of druid who's about cataloging and discovering new animal life and sort of creating a different understanding of it. Maybe their goal, maybe they have a scholar background, and they're more an intellectual type that then translates that experience with animals into like, oh yeah, now I can become this animal. I studied it, I understand its habits. I now can alter myself into that shape. That maybe is kind of a different approach, as opposed to the typical like hippied out sort of like, druid who's all about connections with nature, sort of a spiritual connection with nature.
Yeah,
this would be more of an intellectual connection with nature.
Yeah, well, it's also kind of it's taking druid through the way like kung fu follows, like the descending crane style or the snake, like where you actually observe the animal's motions. And you mimic those because if it works in nature and it's perfect for that in nature, then you should be able to adapt and use it, right?
For players who like the druid, you shouldn't feel confined to a very narrow type of concept for druids. And I think what we're kind of talking about here is understanding what an animal does, translating that into the mechanics, and that's sort of the character that you go for. In terms of sort of other ideas for druids or other things that I really like about the class, I love that they are the summoners of 5th edition.
Yeah, they really are.
At first glance you look at them, it's like, oh, no more animal companion. Is that, for those of us who remember playing through 2nd and 3rd edition and the animal companion was sort of a central feature of the druid, having that kind of stings until you start looking at things like the fact that animal friendship, after a certain point, is a fairly low-cost way to get some just regular animals always around you. If you really wanted a companion, you could take Magic Initiate or dip into Wizard for a Find Familiar. But then as we start going up in levels, the ability of the druid to just sort of travel with a menagerie of an entourage of summoned creatures grows. So we have conjure animals, conjure iron elementals, conjure woodland beings, conjure fae, conjure elementals, planar binding, awakening. Those are all things that mean that a high-level druid is like, well, I got my green hag coven over here, and they're all spellcasters themselves now, and we've got a bunch of elementals that I'm coming around with. And so like, I think that because of that, the ability to have so many different summoning spells coupled with planar binding, that higher level druids, they really do maybe approach levels where they're going to start breaking the action economy.
A little bit,
especially with some of the fae that are in Boles' Guide, with the extra spellcasting that they have, sort of the Ice Hag. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. Right, or the Corrid, giving them some extra spellcasting for their summoning spells. But DMs need to be prepared for that. Yeah. And so high-level druids are similar to things sort of like maybe like a high-level illusionist or even maybe a shadow monk, where the abilities that they get fundamentally alter how that class approaches the game. And DMs need to be prepared for something like a high-level druid, the potential for them to roll around with, well, I've awakened this bear, and I've awakened this tiger, and I awakened that tree, and I've got like 5 or 6 animals that are always around me. I can speak to them. They're my friends. They go and scout out for me, and I got a bunch of bound fae and elementals that follow me around. And I'm also going to wild shape on top of that.
Yeah.
Into what, and so that's the kind of thing where you might start approaching those levels of 3rd edition druidness, where you can tell the rest of the party, go take a hike. I wouldn't personally, because you need those party members there to help you bind those creatures.
Yeah.
You can't do it all on your own. and also because all those summoned creatures can support the rest of the party in play. But high-level druids should be and kind of can be rolling around with a large entourage of summoned creatures, and DMs just need to be careful about that. How you handle summoned creatures for DM, particularly for DMs who are new to D&D. It's something that this edition has tried to crack down on and tried to rein in. Previous editions of D&D, summoned creatures could be a real problem, both from a mechanical perspective in that they bog down play, it makes combat take forever. That's a problem. But also in just the access that they give characters to other abilities and other features.
Yeah.
It can be an issue. I would encourage new DMs to.
Yeah, because there's some Fae now that can summon elementals. Or
Right, the Korrid you summon a Korrid and then they immediately summon an Earth Elemental. And so you get 2 creatures for the price of 1 spell.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that Druids can do, and that DMs should be aware of. But at the same time, you have to be at least an 11th level Druid to do that. So at those levels, you are, you're finally getting up, or maybe 13th level, not 11th, getting for a 7th level spell, getting up into those levels of D&D. I mean, that's just what you're going to have to deal with. And you're dealing with wizards who have access to a tremendous amount of information gathering spells. You're dealing with fighters and barbarians who can make lunch meat out of most monsters.
Yeah.
You're dealing with rogues and monks who can infiltrate places without any fear of detection. So, of course, the druid's going to come around and have a bunch of animals and fae and elementals that they bring with them. I see it as a feature, not a bug, but it is something to watch out for.
Are there any either Circle of the Land that you think are missing? Like, as far as just like, I know they have like coastal.
Yeah.
But we've discussed before, like ocean, like what would that be?
Yeah, like what would a pure underwater...
Devoid of land.
Yeah.
Complete.
Like a pure Oceanic Druid. Yeah, I mean, for me, I've been cooking around the idea of a campaign setting set in Eberron and the Lazar Principalities that really allows me to feature the aquatic monsters and cultures and races in D&D that don't typically get featured in a regular game. So we're talking like Tritons, Merfolk, all the different fish people monsters, Kuatoa, Sagine, or however you pronounce that monster. That's the one that I've never gotten quite around to, but sort of the shark people that live down in the oceans. Sort of like, what would that look like? I think maybe take coastal and replace some of the things. You don't need water walking necessarily for a circle that's supposed to be entirely about underwater sort of environments. Tweak that up a little bit, or you might just do completely different and just do remake your completely new subclass for sort of like a druid of the waves. Maybe they get access to swimming wild shape, creatures that can swim with wild shape sooner, or that can breathe water with wild shape sooner. Maybe they get some bonus spells from land, but they just get completely new class features that allow them to, to highlight the fact that they're at home in the water.
Right.
That might be something that I do. Like I said, I'm curious to see what other things there are in store for the druid. And I'm remembering the Foculian lyricist, sort of a druid bard. I hope that sort of eventually makes its way into a subclass of either bard or druid, because I like the idea of that. And so that's what I hope for. And maybe now that Unearthed Arcana is going week to week instead of month to month, we'll start seeing some more druid playtest material. Flexing the
because just got the
boundaries
2
of the class. Right now it's just the 2, and to me, Moon is so much better than land that it's hard for me to see all the different possibilities for Druid. At the same time, I find just a 20th level land or 20th level Moon Druid seems really awesome.
Well, if you want an idea of what that looks like, we reference this quite a bit, but the Dresden Files.
Yes.
There is a wizard in there he's a Native American. He's called affectionately Injun Joe.
Right.
But there's a fight in there where he's fighting what is that thing?
It's
a shape-shifting like beast. I forgot the name of it.
Right.
but it's from like Native American burial grounds, and so the last fight in there is just them altering, changing into beast after
completely changing,
beast,
beast
like,
after beast, yeah.
just like turning into a hawk flying over, turning into a thing and landing on him, turning into a snake and wrapping him up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just like when you were describing that, I'm like, yep, that's Injun Joe, all right.
That's what it is. And so I think that kind of character concept, first off, there's nothing, the druid has a specific sort of flavor that comes with it, nature priest, like spiritual connection with the land. But you can just take that and quietly separate it out and go, okay, here is a highly versatile spell list. We've got debuffs, we've got direct damage, we've got buffs. Like just the pure druid spell list is a great spell list and always has been.
Yeah.
And so you can play just a pure nature wizard. Now that nature wizard is also wild shaping into a ton of different things. They're taking what the transmuter can do, the transmuter class feature that kind of lets them do the same thing as wild shape, and just increasing that by a tremendous amount. So I think that if you wanted to play an animal mage, that druid's obviously the way to go. And you just kind of like say, no, he's not a nature priest. He's not he doesn't really have any spiritual connection to the land. He has an intuitive understanding of animals and turns into those, as well as buffs himself with the magic.
Oh yeah, for our more Harry Potter
Yes.
leaning fans.
Yeah,
I forgot what they're called, animages.
Animages, something like that. Yeah, and I
That's how
think
you'd make that.
Yeah, and I think that there's a campaign setting in there that takes all of the full spellcasting classes, scrubs them clean of the of the flavor that comes with those classes, and says, okay, these are all mages.
Right.
The bard, the cleric, the druid, the wizard, the sorcerer, maybe not the warlock, but they're all mages. Yeah. And they have slightly different takes on how they approach magic, and slightly different spell lists. But what if you just do something crazy and just like, they have access to all spells. And you just have a mage campaign that you pick the chassis, you pick do you want to be the bookish, sort of like, I understand magic because I study it and understand it and kind of get that understanding that comes through expertise and practice, or it's like I was born with it, or I have an intuitive understanding of it. That sort of determines the flavor of how you approach magic. But for the most part, everybody's casting the same spells. Everybody's doing the same sort of thing, and your class ability just gives you a slight tweak on what that looks like. I don't know. Maybe that's crazy. Maybe it would be entirely broken and unbalanced and would unleash hell upon the earth. But it could be fun if you want to do like an all-mage game to just throw it all in one pot.
Can't do much worse than we already at this point in time. Yeah, and then if we could get another thing and put like a hood on.
Yeah.
Today on WebDM,
DM. That would be
we're
sweet.
going to talk about the Druid.
The Druids.
And if we could get like a stick with a small cutout of Stonehenge that lands right in front of us.
The Druids.
Do you want some mix?
I'm fine. I've been eating these Jimmy Dean sausage things for breakfast, and I'm regretting it because if you follow the heating instructions, the rest of like the sausage and the biscuit and everything is like hot, like piping hot, and there is a solid block of egg ice right in the middle of it. You're like, seriously? Like, you guys, it's like 2016. You guys can't get the Jimmy Dean right? Come on, man.
Yeah. You the thing that I've been doing for years now. Add another 30 seconds and set it at power level 8.
I have been, I doing that, or I just open it up and I just take the egg out and I'm gonna nuke this egg first anyway. That's my Jimmy Dean.
Oh, Jimmy Dean.
Oh,
Jimmy Dean. Jimmy Dean. Jimmy Dean. Why you gonna let my egg be cold?
Gay
Jimmy
Dean.
Dean.
Gay Dean. Gay Dean. Gay Dean.
Say, why don't you be a member of the school board?
Bored.
Gay Dean.
Gay
Gay
Dean.
Dean.